2 Kings chapter 24. And it came to pass after this that Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, gathered all his host and went up and besieged Samaria. And there was a great famine in Samaria, and behold, they besieged it until an ass head was sold for 80 pieces of silver, and the fourth part of a cab of dove's dung for 5 pieces of silver. And as the king of Israel was passing by upon the wall, they cried a woman unto him, saying, Help my lord, O king. And he said, If the Lord do not help thee, whence shall I help thee? All right. The problem that led to the economic meltdown was an external situation. It was not an internal situation. It was an external situation. It was King Ben-Hadad that came to besiege the city. So I decided to study Ben-Hadad. The Ben aspect of the Hadad means the son of Hadad. And I did some investigation and found out that the meaning of Hadad is the name of a deity that controls the storm and the rain. Now, so in the light of the personality that was arrayed against the children of Israel at this time, the condition that led to the economic meltdown could be described as a spiritual situation. But you must understand that this spiritual situation was not because the people were lazy, it was not because they were not hardworking, it was not because they were not making attempts, but it was Ben-Hadad that came against them. So those days, if you visit a butcher's shop, the head was free because the head is not monetized. So poor people can take the head and go on. So the famine was so much that which used to be left over, you need to spend 80 pieces of silver, 80. Is that not 80? Yeah. So you need to spend 80 pieces of silver to get something that was not on the shelf previously. So a lot of money is going in, but what comes out of all of that? I don't know. How much is a sachet of spaghetti? I like this class now. Someone was giving us an analysis the other day. Took 10 pounds to the British market, and we saw the things that 10 pounds bought. So they did an equivalent. The equivalent of 10 pounds in Nigerian naira. And the person went to the market, and there was no need to take inventory. The person didn't need leather bag to bring the proceeds home. It's the kind of thing that happens when Ben-Hadad besieges a territory. Money no longer has value. In fact, the Bible says that a fourth part of a cab or a container containing dove's dung. Dove's dung is a legume that even though they know it's edible, they don't eat it because it is so small. You need to eat so much in order for you to be filled. So nobody's interested. But in the time of this famine, the Bible says that the fourth part, that is 11 grams of dove's dung, went for 5 pieces of silver. So money was no longer having value. There was a lot of money. If you had a lot of money, it's just like the other day, we are building. So we bought iron rods last week, and we had to buy iron rods this week, and the price has so changed. In fact, they say if we don't buy now, in the next 2 hours, they are likely to receive a phone call, and the prices will be reviewed. Now, so when you see the meltdown, the first thing we need to look for is Ben-Hadad. If you start trying, because CBN has been so busy, they are on the news every day, they are adjusting monetary policies mechanically to see how they can stabilize the issue. They have reviewed import duties. Import duties have been reviewed 6 times in 2 weeks. 6 times in 2 weeks, import duties. And the reason why I know this is because we are trying to import something into the country, and our clearing agent keeps giving us updated payment positions. He has been faithful in showing us that it is now so number of millions. Then increase it again. Say, it has become this number of millions now, and then they increase it 6 times. I've received those updates because of an attempt to import something. The product has not reached. The product left, set sail some time ago. But before its arrival, it's supposed to arrive next week, we have had 6 reviews of import duties. Now, those of you that read project management, how do you plan under this kind of circumstance? How do you budget? How do you forecast? When you cannot plan, when you cannot budget, when you cannot forecast, it means that your monetary system has failed. So the CBN is so active. I'm trying to interpret their policy. Sometimes it's even strange. It's strange what they come up with. They don't know that the source of the challenge is Ben Haddad. It's Ben Haddad. But this set of scriptures in this story gives us an insight into how to confront famine in a territory. If you are still with me, say amen. A woman cried out to the king. I heard that in terms of famine, it's women that suffer more. I don't know how much truth. Because that truth is not from the Bible. It's just from, for instance, in times of war, the impact that it has upon women because of their tendency to want to provide for the family, to see that the children are eating, they can go without food and all of that. So so it was a woman that cried out to the king. The king was strolling on the fence, the wall of the city. I don't know what moved a hungry king to the fence, but that was where he was. And the woman was in the city and saw him elevated on the fence. He cried out, "O king, help us. O king, deliver us. This matter." And then the king now revealed. The king used to be a very unsincere man before, but that day he was sincere. He said, "If God does not help you, from whence can I bring this help?" Now, a lot of you are looking to our king and say, So the first point, the first thing, the first matter, the first key, if you want to call it that we must use in a time of famine is to come to the understanding of the fact that if God does not help us, we cannot get help. So wisdom requires, therefore, that we turn our face to God. You must have heard what one of our senior ministers said in recent times in trying to analyze our condition from a more holistic perspective. He said that the problem of Nigeria is spiritual. As much as I know most of you don't like that kind of remark because you are professionals, you are economists, you are mathematicians, you are statisticians, and you know how to stimulate the economy and the kind of things that we need to do as a nation in order for us to come and float again. I know you are professionals, but the person that spoke is not an illiterate person. The pastor that spoke, that gave perspective about the state of our economy, is not altogether an illiterate. He's a doctorate degree holder. So he knows what the numbers mean. However, he said that our problem is not tied to strategy and methods. Our problem is spiritual. And that's the description of what was obtainable in this scripture. So I want to advise, if you can, I know in the marketplaces and those of you that do business and trade in the market, every day you talk about the president and, he's not doing anything. He himself is helpless. Let me show you what the king said unto. The king said unto him. And the king of Israel was passing by upon the wall. There cried a woman unto him, saying, "Help my lord, O king." And he said, "If the Lord do not help thee, whence shall I help thee? Out of the barn floor or out of the winepress? Is there a storehouse that is available that I'm going to take resources from to attend to you? Is the help going to come from the winepress?" So this response that the king gave to the woman was an indication of the fact that he himself was helpless. There were only 2 sources from whence he would have provided help under normal circumstances. From the barn floor. That is to say, in a situation where they had a grain stylus, where they save grain for a rainy day, then salvation would have come from the barn floor. But unfortunately, the resources in the barn floor at this time had already been exhausted. And there were no fresh grapes again to take to the wine press. So there was nothing coming from the wine press, and there was nothing stored up in the barn floor. And he was saying, if God does not help us, there is no help in sight. I'm not an economist, I'm a scientist. And because of my experience in the petroleum industry, I have eyes to understand the news, the updates that are coming from that industry. Most often, it is the shape of the oil industry that determines the strength of our economy. And we have had a subsidy removal policy that skyrocketed all the prices to the current situation today. Now, the truth of the matter is that, as you have all seen, the economy of Nigeria, in the state that it was before the subsidy was removed, did not have the capacity to maintain or to take the shock. And normally when a very drastic policy like that goes into force, palliatives are made available to cushion the effect of that drastic policy. Palliatives in form of increase in salaries, so that we can have a new average, a new reference point. Palliative in terms of, okay, the oil now, that because we're subsidizing consumption, which is it's a wrong economic strategy. So it is justified to remove the subsidy. But you can now subsidize the production, so that what it will cost to produce 1 liter of petrol will be less. And because of that, it will impact upon the prices. And that will be an internal arrangement that will create a buffer for the people. So basically, there are two sources. It's either we have subsidies. Are you there? Subsidies basically on production, so that the production cost will go down. For instance, if we subsidize, crude is the major component that determines 70% of what becomes the pump price. Unfortunately for us, crude is bought in hard currency, in dollars. It is priced and bought in dollars. So even if the price of crude should drop, because our naira has been devalued, it will still translate to a high pump price. Do you understand the metrics? So in such a situation, what the king said is what is obtainable. If God does not help you, from whence can I get the help? There's another argument, and the other argument is now that, okay, now that you have removed the subsidy, it means that there's more money available in the economy to attend to important matters. And I hope you know Nigeria. You hope you know Nigeria. The more money doesn't reflect on the dashboard. So if God does not help us, I did some calculations, but it's not for this class. If I'm not online, I will show you the calculations that I did from December to January, just looking at the Nigerian situation in terms of economy. And I came to the conclusion of the king. If God, please help me preach to your neighbor, if God does not help us, there is no help in sight. Now, so I know many of you intellectuals believe that this, my submission, is non-academic, and because of that, there's no deliverance in it. I will show you how to find deliverance. Because when we decide to turn to God, many things happen. Just like it became clear that only God could provide the answer. Meanwhile, the guys that are suffering from this economic situation are not, see, okay, imagine, you are in the city now, this woman that is crying and say, oh, King, help us. That woman that is crying has not seen Ben-Hadad. Ben-Hadad and his camp and his team are camped in a place that this widow, this woman, has not seen them. But they are the ones that are responsible for the death of her child that she delivered to be eaten yesterday so that they could eat her neighbor's child tomorrow. Can you see the human strategy for surviving the situation that they came up with? Cannibalism. So it means that this hunger was so bad that it had changed the configuration of the heart of the people. The people could now consider their children as meat for the table. I think something much more than a bad economy was responsible. Because even as the situation is in Nigeria now, it has not occurred to anybody that. Meanwhile, the selfish arrangements among parents, among mothers for survival was heavily rigged with manipulation itself. Because after they had a sumptuous moment taking this woman's son, it was time for the other one. and then the finger of manipulation was found in the whole arrangement. The woman went to seek justice from the king. When the king heard the matter, I was expecting the king to judge. He became weak. He was so weak to even bring judgment. If God does not help us, from whence can I provide the help? The helplessness of the king became obvious. So right now we are turning to God. Sometimes God can allow a famine so that men can turn to him again. Right? Sometimes God can allow it so that the hearts of men can turn. Because normally a lot of us will want to make do with our intelligence, and then a situation comes where your intelligence counts for nothing. An opportunity comes, therefore, for us to turn to the Lord our God. Yes, I asked for the price of spaghetti. Is that the most common? No, Indomie. Let's start with Indomie. What was the price of Indomie before, and what is it now? I know there are people here that Indomie is a major item on their table, so they should be able to give us an update on that matter. Yes? Who? It was 50 naira. 350 for one. Oh, you are not helping me. You are not helping me. Oh, it seems the pastors don't eat Indomie. That's what I'm saying. Yes, Pastor Tony, what's happening? What was the cost of Indomie before, and what is the cost now?
The last time I went to get for my kids, I got a carton of Super Pack for 7,600.
No. You see, you are on another level. Okay. We are not talking about people that buy in cartons.
Okay.
In fact, you are not supposed to comment in this meeting. We are looking for people that buy one pack after pack. Those are the people that know the tension that is in the market. A pack, yeah, sister? Please equip her with a microphone.
Before Super Pack 1 was 200, as at today it's 400.
So we have... Yeah. They are saying that the shop you bought your own.
It's old stuff.
The help of the Lord had already visited that. The help that the king is talking about, that God can help. God had helped that shop. That's why it's wrong. Because it's 500 now.
A few days ago, it was 450.
It was 450.
I was at the shop last night. Somebody told me that the carton was 15,200. But at the shop, they say they supplied to the shop for 18,000. So we don't know what the retail price.
As unacademic as this first point is, we are going to believe it. If God does not help us. And indeed, I've looked at the figures. It's in the petroleum industry that my expertise gives me eyes to see. I've looked at the figures, and I can tell you, if God does not help us, there is no help in sight. And it will interest you to know, we just came back from Cameroon. And we use Askai Airlines for the trip. Askai Airlines is domiciled in Togo. So when you take a flight from Abuja, they'll take you to Togo first. And then from Togo, you can go to any other destination of your choice. So we got to Togo, and Togo is not so far from here, as you know. And this meltdown, in fact, the currency of Togo, which is the what's they call it again? CFA, it has increased in value. The CFA has climbed. For the first time in all these trips that we have made, the Naira is junior to the CFA. It was an embarrassment. So what I'm saying is that this famine does not affect Togo. Ben Haddad, the influence of Ben Haddad is not a regional thing. It's just Nigeria that has been besieged. Are you there? And then Cameroon is on the other side. Benin Republic is here, Togo is here, Cameroon is here. You know the map. So we went to Cameroon, and everything was prospering. Everything, the economy was robust. The people were not even thinking about food because there was food everywhere. They were thinking about other things like witchcraft. One of the things that I'm going to compel us to do is to turn our face to the Lord and ask him for an intervention. Because as I speak, it's obvious the king has no answer to this question. Is that clear? All right, so all kinds of things began to take place. Children are murdered by their parents, but it's no longer called murder, it's called eating. When there are dimensions of oppression that can come upon the people, things that are vices will now be given other names. It's now accommodated, it's now accepted. Even the justice system will be weak to provide judgment in such matters. just like the king was weak to respond to. The woman hid her son and she did not travel. She hid her son and she was present. Because when the other one was reporting to the king, was pointing her that this woman, she didn't run away. But the justice system became weak in addressing crimes, in addressing because of the intensity of the situation. Just like the king said, if God does not help us, from whence can I get the help? The first sign of intervention that we saw, the story is a long one, and I've not finished the reading because I just want to use the window that we read today to bring out the major point that I intend to discuss today, and subsequently we'll do further reading and you see further points. In the book of 2 Kings chapter 7, just like the king said that it's only God that can help under such circumstances. Indeed, God decided to be merciful, and God spoke by the mouth of his prophet. You see, are you there? If you analyze the utterance that came from the mouth of God, God did not even speak about the cause of the economic meltdown. The prophetic word that came from God touched on nothing that was the cause of the situation. The prophetic word that came from God predicted and forecasted an impossible market situation. The emphasis of the voice of God was on the marketing table and a new price regime that will take over the space. Just to show you that God is God. It doesn't tell us about how to defeat the situation that resulted in the meltdown. He gives us another prediction. The prediction as touching the market situation in the next few days. It gives us a prediction on the price of cement, prediction on the price of Indomie, a prediction on the prices of spaghetti. So it gives us a prediction on the market. It doesn't tell us about how he will deal with the cost of the situation. Now, so in a time of famine, the most strategic thing that you will need is to secure the position of the voice of God. The reason why we are turning to God is so that we can receive. You see, God is so deep. Are you with me? God is so deep. In the book of Genesis, God decides to visit with Abraham and he introduces himself to Abraham as the El Shaddai. Are you there? The El Shaddai, the strong, the one that can overcome every situation. The one that can overcome every circumstance. The multi-breasted, the one that can sustain every generation. So it's the strong that can overcome. It's the multi-breasted that can sustain. This was the introduction of himself that he brought to Abraham. And we see what he overcame in the life of Abraham was barrenness. He overcame barrenness in the life of Abraham. And I don't want to go into that. He overcame famine in the life of Isaac. So we are going to go into the life of, and he overcame poverty. Poverty is personal. Famine is corporate. Are you there? Poverty is individualized. Famine is an affliction. It's a regional affliction. It's a national affliction. It's a territorial affliction. Famine is an indication of the fact that the territory is sick and needs a healer. Okay? And so we're going to look at the life of Isaac. Genesis chapter 26, verse 1. And there was a famine in the land beside the first famine that was in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went unto Abimelech, the king of the Philistines, unto Gerar. And the Lord appeared unto him and said, Go not down into Egypt, dwell in the land which I shall tell thee, sojourn in this land. You see, these encounters are different encounters. The encounter in verse 2 is different from the encounter in verse 3. Give me verse 2. And the Lord appeared unto him and said, go not down into Egypt. He was already preparing himself because that's the intellectually correct thing to do. It was only Egypt that had what it takes to sustain plant production because of the Nile. And he's already captured in the history of his father that when such a situation came, he had to go to Egypt for sustenance. So he was not about to ask God about the matter because there was already a pattern that was created. And unknown to him, that pattern was created in disobedience. That pattern was created without talking to God. Hallelujah. That's why we follow God. Even if you have a very good example of how a matter was tackled, God may not be willing to tackle that matter the same way he tackled it before in your own case. And that's why the king said, if God does not help us, from whence can I get help? It means the king himself became a preacher of that day. And he was pointing the congregation, pointing the nation to go back to their altar and to consult with God. Because it is from the mind of God that the wisdom that we need for survival as a people and as individuals is going to come. So the first encounter he had, this was what God told him. And the Lord appeared unto him and said, go not down into Egypt, dwell in the land which I shall tell thee of. So at this time, God had not told him the land. It means that God is inviting him for deeper consultations, deeper prayers. You might be in search of wisdom from God, and what comes to you from the heart of God does not spell out the whole pathway of wisdom. It means God is saying, stay put. There are other subsequent encounters that I want to bring to you. The other day, a brother came to me and he said that God has spoken to him to leave the ministry that he's serving because he has an assignment for him. And he went and resigned. So when he came to me, I said, okay, where did he say you should go? He said, that information had not yet come. And you have resigned already. You resigned on half wisdom. Because the profit that wisdom brings is in his ability to give direction. You have received the first part of the direction, which is that your time in this particular ministry has come to an end. But you have not received the second part of the wisdom, which now shows you what you will be doing when you leave this ministry. So he resigned with insufficient wisdom. It will surprise you to know that God can give you the first part of the wisdom, and then the second part of the wisdom will come 5 years later. Whenever you take off like a tornado, without the complete package, you are going to be a victim of Ben-Hadad. Ben-Hadad is looking for someone that will be careless, that will not be careful to secure wisdom from God. And the person, oh my God, he besieged the city. And the only way out is wisdom. And if you become careless in your handling of this wisdom, you become a victim of the impact of the presence of Ben-Hadad. It might take 5 years for the second leg to come out. But he had already moved. And he didn't know where he was going. So the man pressed further. And he said, okay, oh Lord, you said you will show me the land that you want me to dwell, where you will sustain me. Now, the question is this. Is it not the same energy? Are you there? Is it not the same energy that God used in verse 3 to tell him the land? It's the same energy that God used to tell him, I will show you the land. Why did God not just avoid verse 2 and then go straight to the direction in verse 3? God knows you and me. And God will only show up when you seek him with all of your heart. The fullness of that which you seek will never be made available until he has judged that your seeking was done with all of your heart. That means I have no other defense. I have no other salvation. I have no other support. You are my only support. When he knows that you are at that point, then he gives you what you will need for the journey. So in verse 3, he shows up again and says, sojourn in this land. At the end of the day, the golden land that God was talking about was actually the land where he was dwelling. Why did he? That's how God is. He wants to know if you will wait for him. He wants to know whether you have another alternative. He will waste your time for a period. And if it is true that you have another plan B, you will jump at it and leave him alone. It's only those people that don't have any other plan that will see the glory of God. Listen to me. God is not a man. If you go to the economics class in Benue State University, They will give you numerous assortments of solutions to the economic meltdown. The lecturers know it, even though they are not working in it. But at least they know it. They will be saying something. The thing they are saying, they are not experiencing it, but they will be saying it. God doesn't give you an intellectual answer. He doesn't give you an answer that seems to suggest that, that is one high intellectual strategy. God will give you an answer that if you are not sure it is him, you will despise the answer. Because the answer doesn't seem to have the ability to address the issue for which it came. The same land that has been bedeviled by famine, God is asking Isaac, remain in that land and I will bless you. It has not rained in this land. How do you bless a man in a land that has been reproached by lack of rain? Ben-Hadad, the deity of storm and rain, has come against the territory. How do you bless a man? You know, when walking with God, put your mind behind. You can only walk with him with your heart. Your heart is the organ that yields to him even when it doesn't make sense. If you need to make sense out of everything that God says, you will never walk with God. God is determined to confound your wisdom. God is determined to ensure that you get to experience the fact that it doesn't need to sound intellectual in order for it to come with salvation. The man that has guidance from God will float as if there is no storm. And if you don't have guidance from God, you are going to be a victim. Are you there? So these are the days where we need to seek guidance from God. There is no situation you find yourself in that there is no guidance that can come from God that can settle you in that situation. All of you know my story. How I was in the oil industry and I was doing well. We were well paid. You didn't need to take a bribe because your salary was okay. We were earning way more than ₦1 million under the circumstances of the old Nigeria, not this roller coaster system. We're doing well. Young guys, we're doing well. We're experts, professionals in what we were doing. So then the Lord now says, resign. So I went to him. I knew it was him that was giving me guidance. So I asked him, you are aware that I have a multitude in my house. And when you asked me to resign, you didn't ask them to go. You didn't ask the multitude to go. So now, how do I continue being the support system that I am in their lives if I no longer have this my good job? Do you know that this inquiry did not take long? He answered me. If I tell you the answer now, you'll be weak because it's not intellectual. You know what he told me? He said, teach the Bible. Does that sound? I'm just trying to let you know how God works. His answers are not intellectual. His answers are rejoicing to the heart and not the head. They don't make sense, but they make life. I can tell you that. So God is asking me to leave my job. God is asking me to leave my sustenance and to focus on bringing his counsel to our generation and beyond. And he never told me how I will sustain my camp. When I pressed, he said, teach the Bible. How does teach the Bible relate with my financial condition? And you know, I told you in my relationship with God, anytime I ask a question that is out of range, he does not answer. It means that your question is foolish. I just understand. Because there was a time I was gisting with God, and I gisted with him for 3 hours. And the reason why I was able to keep him was that I was asking the right question, and he was answering me. And we were in that discussion for 3 hours. That's what the Bible calls a mouth-to-mouth discussion. So whenever, and you see, even if you write your questions down on a piece of paper, and he comes, you will forget that paper. That's if he wants you to forget, you will forget it. So you are not really in control. Are you there? Are you? He knows where to touch. There are some things he touches, some buttons. When he touches those buttons, those things you are saying, if he comes again, he will forget all of them. You are not. You forget. So I've been able to keep him for 3 hours. We were discussing like that for 3 hours. In fact, he will even allow me write what he's saying. I'll write it down. Then I say, okay, I'll say, wait, let me get this one. He will wait. And for 3 hours, I exhausted all my questions, and he walked away. But if he comes like that to speak to me, and then I ask the wrong question, the discussion has ended. So he told me, teach what? The Bible. This teach the Bible matter that I'm telling you, he gave me this instruction in 2020. I had not resigned yet. Teach the Bible. I came home for a weekend to go back to work, and because of COVID, all the borders of the states were shut down. So I began to talk to my colleague on the other side. He sends me data, I work on the data, do everything, do the job, and then I send it. So I was able to continue doing my work from here, all right? Then, early in the morning, you know my friend from Lagos, Prophet Ayo, now calls me. Say, I saw you on the white horse, and as you were riding on that horse, you were proclaiming the kingdom. Guess what he now says in interpreting what the vision meant? He said, teach the Bible now. Hey, teach the Bible? It's okay. That was how we started that teaching that I did preach for 80 days. Those of you that were there. It was on the instruction of teach the Bible. 2 things happened when I taught the Bible during those 80 days. Are you still with me? First thing that happened is, since the history of this ministry, there has never been a time, that is the history of this ministry up until that time. There has never been a time where people gave to this ministry like the 80 days. That 80 days of preaching was our breakthrough in terms of people sowing into the ministry. The flow was so consistent, and so the momentum, I don't know, what's the name? Give me a scientific word for this. Huh? You people want to confuse our audience now. You know what I'm talking about. The way the finances was flowing in on a daily basis, it was on the strength of that flow that we took off by faith and started laying this foundation. You know where we were now. The capacity of the building was 250 people. And then we now started building a hall that would take 4,500 people. Are we not crazy? We are crazy now. But they began to flow. This foundation you are standing on cost 55 million that time. Not now, that time. Because if you are saying that Indomie that used to be 250 is 500, if this foundation costs 55 million, what is the cost now? You got it right. That's the value. And I continued teaching, and the people were giving. I don't know what was going on. People were giving, and that was how the walls went up. I said, oh. And are you with me? Let me tell you my own little one. As they were giving to us as a ministry, they were also giving me in my account too. 5,000 we enter, 20,000, 10,000. In fact, they give in one day. That's my own small one now. In 24 hours, they gave me my salary. So I said, oh, what was it? You are not following me. You are not following me. So God was trying to prove to me that the strategy he gave me, even though it doesn't sound intellectual, it will work. For there will be no cloud, there will be no wind, but the ditches shall be filled with water. Didn't sound intellectual. I got my salary in 24 hours. So I now understood that I could survive based on that strategy. It is because of that when you come for fellowship, I will never lack what to tell you. I will prepare in the night. I will wake up and go and pray to know the mind of God. Because as I am doing it, the other aspect too. So that is why the meltdown is not affecting me. Because I got my own guidance from God. And the thing about the guidance we get from God, it doesn't expire when it's 2025. Now I'm provoking you. See, I want you to, oh my God, I want to come one day. And there are so many testimonies that will now abolish testimonies. I say, because if we start taking testimonies every day, we will not have time. Go back and receive guidance for your life.
Thank you for watching. And if this video has blessed you, Please like, kindly subscribe, and also tap on the notification bell so you can stay notified and updated on our new videos. And please do not forget to share the link to people so we can bless more people. And most importantly, we want to know how this video has blessed you under the comment section.
Don't forget to subscribe.